With word recently breaking that Johannes Roberts' upcoming reboot of the Resident Evil movies has been cast and has begun production, I thought it appropriate to go through Constantine Films' previous attempt at adapting what is my second favorite video game franchise of all time next to The Legend of Zelda. And I won't be doing this entirely on my own, at least in video form, yes, I will be. My good friend and fellow Resident Evil enthusiast, Kason Newman, will be posting his own mini reviews of the Resident Evil movies in sequential order. I will be doing full reviews, so if you want to see shorter versions of them once you're done watching my videos, feel free to shuffle on over to his channel. I'll try to remember to leave a link in the description box, and he'll give you the Cliff Notes version. But for now, let's get started. The first Resident Evil movie was released in 2002 from writer, producer, and director Paul W.S. Anderson. It stars his future waifu Milla Jovovich as a woman named Alice who wakes up completely naked in a mansion with no memory of who she is or how she got there. Before long, she finds herself in the company of Matt Addison, played by Eric Mabius, a local cop who came up to the mansion to find his missing sister, as well as a team of commandos working for global pharmaceutical giant the Umbrella Corporation. Turns out they have a lab underneath the mansion called the Hive, which Alice was head of security for, and in said lab they were developing a new type of biological weapon called the T-virus, which has the ability to reanimate the dead and mutate the living, or other dead, into horrific beasts. For reasons unknown, the highly advanced AI system that keeps the Hive operational and secure has put the entire facility on lockdown, and once they get down to the Hive and open it back up, it isn't long before they learn why. The T-virus has gotten loose inside the facility and turned the entire staff into flesh-eating zombies. So the original Resident Evil movie is meant to be a prequel story to the original game set prior to the events of that 1996 classic, despite the fact that the actual prequel story, Resident Evil Zero, was set to release mere months after the movie did. And with Capcom working closely with the filmmakers to make sure this movie was as Resident Evil as possible, I'm 99.5% positive that Paul What the Shit Anderson would have already been in the know that his little prequel story would be rendered redundant once RE0 had dropped. Meaning that this franchise has been nothing more than fan fiction from day one, and you will never be able to convince me otherwise. Granted, if you're to forget the movie is supposed to be an adaptation / prequel to one of the most influential video games of all time, the movie does an adequate enough job of standing on its own 2 feet. There's a healthy collection of Easter eggs sprinkled throughout to satisfy fans, from Alice's red dress, to the mansion, to dead bodies inexplicably disappearing when characters return to rooms they were previously in. And the movie, for the most part, does an okay job of delivering on the whole zombie-infested lab beneath an isolated mansion concept. The zombies and zombie dogs do properly look like the dead reanimated, rotting like all hell, and the infamous Licker, a mutation from the T-virus that looks like a skin druggie, completely blind and earns its name because its tongue is a very lethal weapon, does make an appearance both in the form of an in-camera dummy and in some very obvious, very dated, even for 2002, CGI. The movie also attempts to build an atmosphere, in my opinion, the key ingredient to any good horror movie, but that atmosphere is constantly being upended by certain aspects of 2002 Hollywood that should have stayed out of a movie entitled Resident fucking Evil. Specifically, Milla Jovovich doing high-flying kung fu moves, one half-assed attempt at bullet time. Remember, this is 2002, when everyone was stealing from the Matrix in one way or another. Occasionally fast editing that does nothing to build the tension, and said tension constantly being undermined by Marilyn Manson's band blasting guitar riffs on the score. Nothing kills tension harder for me than fighting the urge to bang my head to Tyler Bates jamming it out. Tyler Bates was playing for Manson in 2002, right? I don't know. And the cast ain't much better. Mila Jovovich's Alice is a blank slate character from start to finish, both in the movie itself and the franchise this movie would spawn. Doesn't remember jack shit, doesn't really grow as a character, and either looks confused or looks like she just caught whiff of a righteous fart. Eric Mabius' Matt Addison is only slightly more of a character, largely due to the fact that he has another reason, an ulterior motive for being at the mansion outside of just looking for his missing sister. The only members of the Umbrella Commando unit that are truly worth remembering are the team leader, one played by Colin Salmon. I only consider him noteworthy because I'm a lifelong James Bond fan. And Rain, who was played by Michelle Rodriguez. And sure, one is essentially just Colin Salmon playing a standard military commander, and Rain is just Michelle Rodriguez being early 2000s Michelle Rodriguez, but they are characters. James Purefoy, who I only remembered because he would later go on to portray the character of Solomon Kane in one of the most underrated movies of the last 20 years, portrays Alice's cover husband Spence, who also suffers from memory loss and is also a blank slate until a major third act reveal that has very little impact. The only other actress besides Michelle Rodriguez worth remembering is Michaela Dicker, who portrays the Red Queen, the AI system that controls the Hive. She's a robotic engine of murder in the form of a precocious preteen. That's it. You're all going to die down here. Resident Evil isn't an unwatchable movie. It's not the worst adaptation of a video game I've ever seen, but it's hardly worth anything above a rental.